So I'm going to ask 4 questions, and I'm going to pivot to a little bit of just some heads-up stuff. The first one, and these are going to sound really arcane, but they kind of go across. So I'm invested in a whole bunch of companies, a whole bunch of technologies. You know, I am a high school graduate, just. So here's the first one. I don't expect an answer right now, and they only have to be, you only got to be, you guys are academics, right? You only got to be 80% right on this, 60 to 80% right, and you only got to be to 60 to 80% accurate to be incredibly useful in the real world now. Is that appealing for anybody? You guys do deal in deferred gratification? Okay. And you can even do it anonymously. You can even do it anonymously. Can everybody hear me okay? In the back? Okay, good. Cheers. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you. First question. I get pitched on feed additive strategies all the time. I chair the investment committee of a venture capital firm, so it's natural I do. I get quoted 10 to 12, 10 to 15% gain in animal efficiency if we suppress methane, that's how much energy goes into the methane piece, right? Am I the only one that gets that in the pitch decks? Who else sees those numbers? 10 to 12, 15%, okay? Yesterday I saw a slide from a really smart guy from the University of someplace, starts with an N. I guess it's Nebraska. The pride of Scotts Bluff, right? My wife's from Scotts Bluff. The pride of Nebraska, his number is 5%. Okay? Now, what's the difference between 5%, 15%? Does it really matter? Hell yes, it matters. Nothing we're going to do is going to be 100% efficacious. If we get a third of 5%, it doesn't really matter. It's small beer, right? We get a third of 12 to 15%, it does matter. Can we just get some prevailing sentiment with all the caveats? Is the number we should be using in the real world, practical people, when we write checks to fund stuff, is it 5 or is it 15? That's question 1, okay? Remember, I'm an amateur. Question 2. 1% to 1.5% genetic gain per annum. We've heard that fairly frequently. Is that the number we hear? Okay, I got a really dumb question from a dumb guy, right? I've got 70, well, actually the program that we run with a bunch of fellow farmers, which are getting 45% marketplace premiums, by the way. 45% marketplace premiums, 2/3 back to the farmer in a cash check at the end of the season. Honest to goodness. Honest to goodness. In agreement with the processors, supply chain, all the way from a consumer back to the farmer. A real live check. And there's a former head MPI here, so I better not be telling porkies, because I'll be so busted. How much money you put in that sucker? $23 million, Wayne? Okay. All right? It does work. It's small, but we're growing. We got 500,000 stock units in that, which converted to cattle equivalents, because these are sheep, it's about 100,000, roundabout. Okay? Right? 28% of those breeding ewes, about 250,000 breeding ewes in total in the program, directly, indirectly. I got to take 28% of those we 70,000 replacement ewes, right? Now, I saw a slide up here, and this was cattle, not sheep, that showed 70% inherent variability in methane from the slide. That was somebody, remember that slide yesterday? It was the pink slide, 70%? Somebody please tell me, I've got 100% genomic certainty in all our cattle, Lee Leachman's databases, all my cattle go back to those. All of our sheep, 100% genomic certainty, because it's a controlled genetic program, overnight 13-year success story. Oof. Anyway, is the 1 to 1.5% after I go in there and cream off the top 20% of the offenders? Or is the 1 to 1.5% before I do that or after? I just need to be 80% right, 60% right. Okay, do you get the question I'm trying to ask? You've got we have an unmolested population there right now. If I high grade it and take off the top 20%, this is how I improve my lambing percentages, right? I get rid of the underperformers, right? If I do that same thing for methane and leave all my other attributes right, should I internalize a 1 to 1.5% genetic improvement selection? If the place this is coming from it was Invermay, wasn't it, Wayne? Yeah, is this the Coopworth flock study at Invermay? I heard this stuff 7 years ago in a presentation by Fonterra. I hope this is new, reliable data, and we're not making big investment decisions on this stuff. So somebody disabuse me that we're using a very narrow sample size to make big dollar investment decisions on. That's question 2, okay? I'm an unfun guy and I never get invited back. Question number three. I'm a pragmatist, right? I'm a rational empiricist with an IQ of 63. Do high-performing, low-methane ruminants respond to feed additives like an unselected from population? I tried to articulate that as well as I can. This really, really, really matters. This really, really, really matters. If we are drawing conclusions from samples that are, for want of a better word, virgin populations, and then we're putting a feed additive in there, and I got 70% inherent variability, this feels like my brother, who's got an advanced degree from this joint, would go, man, you're full of crap, okay? I just feels like he would tell me that. There are tens of millions of dollars being invested every month based on that set of assumptions. I heard a guy who, I don't know this guy, but the fellow up here from the University of Pennsylvania, man, that guy just oozed credibility with me when he said, maybe not so much. We need an answer on that that's 60 or 70% accurate right now. Am I wrong? You don't got to be 100% right. It doesn't have to get published in 2 peer-reviewed science journals. We don't have to wait 33 months for you to get a postdoctorate ad. Just give us a practical piece of advice we can live with. Because in the interim, people are making capital investment decisions on their capital stock that have got 6, 7, 8-year capital investment decisions. Fourth one, do low methane animals show high productivity traits? Is that a yes or a no? I kind of think the answer is a yes, okay? I kind of think that's what I see in the data sets. But these 4 questions, if they could get answered by all you, I don't use the word triple-digit IQ propeller head, y'all get beat up, but by all you really, really smart people, if you give us some guidance on this in short, easy-to-follow words that are digestible, okay, so we can do something about it real time, I think we'll get to the answers faster. So help us out. Okay. The 5th one, I'm going to throw throw the cat amongst the pigeons here. GWP 20 versus GWP 100, okay? I'm 73 years old. I got maybe 6, 7, 8 years left if you go through those. I'm also a cancer survivor 4 times, so maybe not so much. But the issue is the economic incentives that we feel as farmers are all built on everybody's consensus. I'm talking about the big, big picture of the old GWP 100 Paris protocols, right? I mean, that's the whole world operates on. I'm not allowed to put in writing, because my team said they'll all quit, the number 81 GWP 20, right, or star. I'm not allowed to do that because of the backlash where I live. Honestly, I'm not allowed to do it. It's a social foul. And I'm pretty foul that even I won't do that social foul, all right? But in the real world, we all know the half-life of methane is what? 10 years, 11, 12, whatever the hell. And carbon's 100. When we invest in one of these things, we are investing in a deferral. It's just a deferral. Whether it's carbon or it's methane, it's a deferral. How long's the deferral? All right, new concept I haven't heard anybody talk about in this meeting yet. Net present value of a future benefit. What's the NPV? What's the discount rate to equalize it and bring it? I spent so far $27,000 with people who are respected in the country that is taking me in, so I can speak not with this accent, and I can speak in the language that is acceptable to the people who make decisions, so I don't offend anybody, like in Treasury. Why in the hell are we giving farmers a 15% internal rate of return to change their land use to something that will have 0 carbon sequestration for 5 years, land use change, right? And we're not willing to pay them a penny for a deferral of something that's got 81 times the punch, right, over the next 10 years. Now, I'm not allowed to say that in print. And poor suffering New Zealanders here who let me in, I do put stuff in print nationwide. It's embarrassing, isn't it, John? You guys got to get a lot more selective on you got border problems. Call Trump, he'll tell you how to fix it. It's a big deal because here's a secret about farmers. You guys ready for this? If you pay a farmer to do something, the farmer will do it. It's that simple. And if it's a 3X or a 4X, they'll put their money up to do it. It's that simple. And it has to be understandable and it has to not screw the place up. Let's pay the farmers to do the right thing. Well, racing along here. My heart was touched when I heard the comment about $1.50 for a cow in East Kenya. My heart was touched. I spent time in the Masai Mara. I know what those Maasai are going through. That is surreal. That's surreal. That's pain and suffering. When the gentleman from Brazil was talking about, I will not risk social disruption in my country for this, right? That's real. These are first world, high quality, luxury problems that most of us are dealing with arithmetic here. I'm going to throw out a number. I don't know if it's accurate. I'm sure it's not. Someplace between 500 million and 1 billion hominids make their living in subsistence pastoral agriculture. When we start changing the ground rules on this stuff, the knock-on effects should humble all of us. I'm not saying don't do stuff. Take the price of chocolate. Huh? That's a non sequitur. Price of chocolate's gone up 200% in the last, 24 months, something like that? 80% of the chocolates produced in the Côte d'Ivoire or Ghana, right? You want to guess how much those farmers that grow that stuff, how much their price has gone back when they sell it to the controlled government board? Because I checked this out, because we're in a technology that monitors this stuff. Zip, all right? When we start talking about scope three stuff, actually, a guy asked to see me. I saw the chairman of the Danish Sovereign Wealth Fund in Copenhagen about 6 weeks ago on a fund. You know what he wanted to talk? He didn't want to talk about the venture capital fund that the rest of the team was pitching his team on. He goes, how do you guys in New Zealand keep farmers from going berserk, right? You saw the slide from the Dane, right? And I say, you know what the answer is? We don't, right? The Kiwis are a little more sustained. We still drove a tractor in. How many years ago was that one? Right? It still happens. It's tribal. That's why we got to pay people, and we got to make sure that our stuff is pretty much right. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to touch the live rail now. Bromoform. So one of the companies I've invested in did a review of all the naturally occurring substances they could find. I think it was about 7,000. And the bromoformic compounds that come out of Asparagopsis armata, taxiforma, blah, blah, you guys already know this. Off the charts compared to anything else, right? So, youthful Tom, full of enthusiasm, invests money in some CH4 Global, gets a joint venture. We're going to market this stuff in New Zealand. Where do you find this stuff? It's out in the ocean. I hire a helicopter. We go find it. Hire a fishing boat. We go out there and harvest the stuff. We pull it in. It all oxidizes. There went $45,000. Then we figure out you got to pull it in and put it inside oil pretty quick. Blah, 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 blah. $136,000 down the drain. It's all right. We're learning, okay? We start doing tests. We get a little bit further along. We start bringing in some other kinds of compounds. I got to get some tests. So I get a single test at a research institute in New Zealand. $236,000 I wrote for this test. 8 weeks later, I get the response back, and the test wasn't done correctly. I didn't even get an apology. I got a canceled check, right? Where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is a newsflash. Starting in July, we will be commercializing a real-time dynamic artificial rumen. I got 20 of them operating simultaneously now that do communicate the methane as it is being produced in the artificial rumen that rocks, called the beast. We got a kind of better socially acceptable name, but it's currently what it's called, right? Methane, CO2, and each of the 6 VFAs. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. I think it'll be available for lease hire, and it'll be commercialized in July. Right now, it lives in a skunk works in Invercargill, New Zealand. I don't think, or Dunedin rather, I don't think any of you guys are going to sneak on down there and peek at Pete Fennessy, but she's coming along. Another one, and I've been authorized, I can say this. All right. So we heard all about the 80% of the off-farm grazing, right? I mean, off-intensive, that's our real problem. Sample size, 30 heifers, 3 cohorts, 10 each, 1 intervention, 90 days later, consistent greater than 70% suppression of methane. No retardation of expected growth. We're still a proof of concept. I just got the hook to get kicked out, so I'm going to shut up now. God bless you. Just one last thing. Please be aware, just sensitive to the issue of bullying in the sand pile. Okay? There's a lot of kids playing in the sandbox. Some of the kids are bigger than other kids. Those big kids hire consulting firms and they talk about things like competitive advantage, distinctive competences, barriers to entries, and moats. I was on the board of the United States Chamber of Commerce for a couple of years. There's a street called K Street. You call up K Street, you go spend $1 million, and K Street penetrates all of the people that we've been talking about here. And when this nice woman from Scottsbluff, Nebraska yesterday talked about everybody playing together collegially, right? Remember that? We're all going to cooperate together. And then this other guy over here, I think he's the Undersecretary of Agriculture, am I right? Did you hear what he said? Did you hear his words? Who heard the word he said? I heard it. Kumbaya. Kumbaya. That's a red flag, boys and girls. There are hundreds of millions of dollars that have been invested in technologies which are efficacious and which are superb. They will defend that any means legally. We've already had capricious lawsuits, not from that particular place, from other people in this, simply to burn up our capital. Thank you.